we live in this country, we're aware that there's a lot of obstacles facing left, but that's why we're in this room right now, right? We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity. I was just talking to somebody. There's like, 35, 40 people, socialists, in a room talking about socialism in the Deep South in Louisiana. So that's pretty impressive. We have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to launch an assertive anti-capitalist politics in the United States. But the question is, how do we translate our socialist ideals and values into a viable political strategy? How do we make this democratic socialist movement into something that's long-lasting, sustained, that exists in rural communities, towns, cities, and states across the country? So DSA is an organization that has a national strategy that's been outlined in the Resistance Rising document, if any of you read that. So basically, our strategy consists of fighting on a number of interconnected fronts in the short term, leveraging gains into offensive changes in the medium term, and ultimately using the strength of a mass socialist organization to win political power and begin the process of socialist transformation in our society. So we believe in fighting for something called transformative reforms that popularize the idea of socialism and make further, more dramatic reforms possible in the future. So some examples would be Medicare for all, free college tuition, that kind of thing. So we believe that we have to prioritize certain key areas. We have to build multiracial, intersectional coalitions. We believe that the most effective movement to combat economic and social injustice links together anti-racist, feminist, queer, labor struggles, anti-ableist struggles, and anti-ageist movements, and understands how capitalism and class hierarchy can't be separated from any of these oppressions. We have to prioritize racial justice work both inside and outside of DSA. We have to work in coalitions with organizations led by working people from Black and Brown, immigrant, trans, and queer communities. So this is definitely something that DSA has to work on. We also have to talk about labor organizing. We heard earlier about the fundamental social relationship in capitalism between working people and their bosses. The exploitation of working people is a primary source of profit and power in the capitalist system. And our organization believes that the self-organization of working people is an essential tool in our struggle for social and economic justice. So we have to place the labor movement at the center of our work. We have to encourage our members to become rank and file activists in the workplace, whether they have a union or not. So we also have to focus on community organizing. One of the major side effects of the neoliberal social order since the 1970s has been the destruction of community and familial ties. Like, how many of us really know our neighbors? A lot of people don't, right? So we have to use our organizing work to restore our sense of community and build relationships with our neighbors. All politics are local, so DSA chapters must be intimately connected to struggles on the city, town, and neighborhood level. Now we're going to talk about electoral organizing. It's my fave, Ocasio-Cortez. So DSA is not a political party. That's a common misconception. Our relationship to electoral politics is one of advocacy and endorsement. So we advocate for policies that reflect our beliefs, like Medicare for all. We endorse candidates who fight for the things that we stand for. Some of them run for office under the Democratic Party and some don't. So we know that the US electoral system has many problems. We don't believe in working entirely within the Democratic Party. We know that change does not come from above, but from the grassroots, right? So we aim to maintain a distance from the electoral establishment. But we understand that the movement for socialism must be fought on every single terrain. I will say in New Orleans, we've never endorsed any candidates for office. So, environmental organizing. We have to participate in the climate justice movement against the devastation wreaked by global capitalism on the world's most vulnerable peoples, cultures, and ecosystems. We have to defend our environment from those who seek to profit from its destruction. And finally, we have to stand in solidarity with movements around the world fighting for liberation. This kind of solidarity can take the form of opposing our own government's imperialist foreign policy and military intervention. It can also take the form of organizing against police violence and oppression here in the United States. So what does that look like in New Orleans? How do we build DSA in New Orleans? What's our strategy? So our chapter works in several different areas on various projects. The nature of our chapter structure emphasizes committees. So for instance, all committees elect somebody to sit on our local council, which is our local leadership body. So here are some of the committees and working groups. As you can see, we've got a lot, and I won't go through every single one of them, but the Healthcare for All Committee does regular health fairs and medical debt clinics. We do Medicare for All canvassing. The Direct Service Committee does our break light clinics. This event was organized by the Political Education Committee. The Socialist Feminist Working Group met across the hall today. We've got a Municipal Action Committee that focuses on local political issues. The Tech and Communications Committee provides some of the basic core infrastructure and outreach for our chapter. And the Labor Standing Committee, Alec is in the room, he's the co-chair of Labor, Jeff's the other co-chair. They try to help workers organize in their workplace and just create a more militant attitude among working people in New Orleans. So we do a lot in our chapter. One benefit of having an internal culture that allows for a lot of different committees is that members can pursue the work that they are most interested in and that they feel most passionate about. But one of the drawbacks is that a spread out approach to work decreases the overall political effectiveness of our organization in terms of winning political struggles. So one of the things that I think we should talk about tonight when we talk about strategy is, what's our strategy for New Orleans? What is our strategy for building socialism here? Because that's what we really need to be focused on. How do we bring this theory and practice and all this knowledge that we've gained tonight and apply that to work on the ground? So we've begun to talk in chapter leadership, and this is a conversation we want to extend to everybody in the chapter. How do we create a chapter program? A program is something that basically like the Resistance Rising document. It includes an analysis of local political and economic conditions, an assessment of our skills and resources, what we have to offer, what we can do, how many people we can turn out to protest, how many people we can get to canvass, that kind of thing. Key targets and goals, so we want to get somebody elected from our chapter in 3 years to city council, or do we want to build our membership by 100 people in the next year, that kind of thing, and a strategy of how we get there. So a program explains who we are and what we're about. One of the questions that we have on our discussion tonight is, what do you think should be our 3 priorities for New Orleans DSA? What should we focus on? How do we unify all of our different struggles and build a real socialist strategy here on the ground? But, as socialists, we always have to understand how we link education to action and theory to practice. So to conclude all this and get to the fun part, which is the group discussion. So DSA makes no secret of our vision for the future. It's one of radical democracy in both the political and economic arena. We aim to weaken the power of corporations and the rich through transformative reforms that benefit working people and popularize socialist ideas. We fight to strengthen the power of the working class to exercise control over how our society is governed and how the wealth we produce is distributed. We must not only point out what is wrong with capitalism, but push for a positive view of democratic socialism and clearly articulate the better world we're fighting for. For the foreseeable future, we must work on building a strong, independent, and multiracial organization that can fight offensively for democratic socialist vision. Our long-term goal of a truly democratic socialist society must always be our guiding light, never out of sight for us. We believe that we will win.